Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Learn OpenStack from the Experts at Red Hat. My name is Michelle, and I'll be helping with today's session. Before we get started, I'd like to review a few housekeeping items and let you know how you can participate. This webinar is being recorded. We will provide you a link to your recording as soon as it is available. You have joined today's webinar listening through your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to use your telephone, just locate your audio pane and select Use Telephone. The dial-in information and access code will then be displayed. Attendees will be in listen-only mode, and we invite you to ask questions about the presentation using the questions panel. Just type in your question and click send. At the end of the webinar, we'll do a question and answer session and take as many questions as possible. Now, the first 300 people who signed up for this webinar will receive the Domino's e-gift card. If you registered by March 21st, you should have received your e-card yesterday. If you registered after March 21st, you will receive your e-card on March 31st. This offer is only valid for U.S. residents. Now, let me introduce you to our presenter today. Daniel Fail, Channel Solutions Architect at Red Hat, has more than 10 years of experience in designing and implementing open source software in Fortune 100 companies. He has a diverse background ranging from software architecture to data center operations. He helps Red Hat partners understand and implement Red Hat open source solutions for their customers. Thank you so much, Daniel. Welcome, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. So today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what Red Hat is doing with OpenStack, our cloud infrastructure products, and where we're going and where we see the technology going inside of Red Hat. So let's talk a little bit about OpenStack, what it is, and how it works in your environment. So if you look at OpenStack and what it is, basically it's kind of a modular architecture. It's a bunch of different piece parts out there. You have Nova, the compute node, which is your virtualized infrastructure there. You have Glance image service, Swift, object store sender. A lot of piece parts in there. There's even one keystone, kind of funny. It's the security thing. Keystone COPS kind of thing. That's kind of something Microsoft would develop. But no, it's actually what the guys there, when they first developed the code out there, they decided to name it and kept it that way. And it's all managed through an interface called Horizon out there. This is a web-enabled interface. You can hit it up pretty easy. It is based on a growing set of core services out there. You see various projects popping up in the OpenStack world, adding new things, heat, things like that out there to give more functionality to the OpenStack system. So a lot of people sit there and think of OpenStack and think, well, this is a cloud operating system. Well, not necessarily. So it still needs x86-based hardware out there. You can't, do anything without that. It also needs an operating environment to it, an OS to run on top of there, and hypervisor and various services out there. And one thing that's kind of cool about OpenStack and what makes it so flexible out there is, say, when they're actually using Nova compute nodes, they're actually using existing hypervisors out there. The most popular one, be it the open source one, KVM, that we ship with our Red Hat products and is the base of our Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization. So, any of you using Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization out there? Hopefully so. OpenStack does run on top of Linux for the most part. Doesn't run on any other operating system out there yet. Our preference, Red Hat OpenStack, we optimize it for our version of Linux, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Let's talk a little bit about Red Hat's involvement in OpenStack. So if you look at the OpenStack timeline and how long it's been out, and it's kind of a little fuzzy here, but we installed the first development resources out there for us working on the product probably in about 2011, September timeframe around there. By the time April 2012 came around, we were the #3 overall code contributor to the SX release of OpenStack. By the time October 2012 came around, we were the #2 overall code contributor to the Folsom release. And by the time April 2013 came around, we were the #1 overall code contributor to the Grizzly release. We've made a very heavy investment in OpenStack. We have a lot of developers on there. We are one of the OpenStack Platinum members of the OpenStack Foundation out there. We're proud to have leaders of projects within the OpenStack organization working for us. What does this mean to you? Hey, great, Red Hat, you've done a lot of things coding OpenStack. Why is that good for me? It means that we know the code inside and out. So if you deploy Red Hat OpenStack, we can help you if something goes wrong. We can lend our expertise to make sure you get it deployed correctly in your environment. help you get around any problems that you may discover, because we have people on site that write the code, working for us, helping you get changes that you may need into the code very quickly and easily, and bug fixes. So let's talk a little bit about how we get from community OpenStack to Red Hat Enterprise OpenStack. So if you look at OpenStack today, it is just a standard open source community project. Basically, it's upstream software out there. It's founded by Rackspace Hosting and NASA. Basically, those folks a couple years ago kind of looked at what Amazon had with AWS and said, hey, that's really cool. I'd like to have one of those. Of course, Amazon's not likely to give them that and let them put that in their data centers. So these guys went out and started an open source project. It's grown fairly good. It's a nice, open, vibrant community out there. Distributed under the Apache 2.0 license, allowing people to take the code, modify it, and give back. Standard open source project. Our progression from there is we've developed our own Red Hat OpenStack RDO. It is the latest OpenStack software. We package it, give you binaries for it, facilitated by us. It's mainly aimed at architects and developers, general people who want to test and play around with something. You can kind of think of it like Fedora is to Linux and a Linux distribution. So very similar to what RDO is there. It does install on Red Hat and various other derivatives out there of Red Hat, so we don't actually limit it to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. The Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform is our enterprise-hardened OpenStack software. It is developed and certified to work with our applications, to work with applications certified on Red Hat Enterprise Linux. When you're using it, you need to remember that everything that is certified, so if you're using a third-party application like a database or a Java application server or something like that, all of that stuff is certified to run on top of Red Hat Linux, continues and keeps that certified running on top of Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform. So there's no changes in that, no recertification necessary, all the stuff there, and you get the service and support you need. You're able to call us 24/7, 365. We have global follow-the-sun-based support, and you're able to get training on it to certify yourself. So, and we'll talk a little bit more when Randy comes up about what training is available out there. So let's kind of look at the open source OpenStack release cadence. So if you come to OpenStack org like I did a couple of years ago, you notice, well, they don't actually distribute any binaries. It's all basically source code. So you'll have to sit there and get the packages, compile them, fix any bugs, any compiler issues, any of that stuff. You have to go through that, compile it, get it working, source code only. No binaries for you whatsoever. They have what I call the freight train release cycle. So basically, they release every 6 months, no matter what. Heck or high water, they don't care. New release is coming out. They only patch 2 to 3 snapshots in a different release. And once they release a new version, say Folsom came out, hey, no more releases for anything behind Folsom. No more fixed packs, nothing like that. The Red Hat OpenStack project, RDO, basically follows the upstream cadence, so we still have that freight train release for it. So we still release a new version every 6 months. We do release binaries, though, so you don't have to sit there and worry about having to download, recompile, fix compiler bugs. We'll actually give you RPMs, have a setup utility there to allow you to install it in your environment. We do ensure it installs on Red Hat platforms, so it does work on Fedora, works on Red Hat itself, obviously. And then we deliver a Yum repo out there to make it very easy for you to install. You basically just add the repo, the RDO repo, to your Fedora system and start installing it very quick and easy. Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack, it's a little different. So we do a 6-month cadence for that. But if you notice, we're about 2 months behind where the open source project is. What this allows us to do is to backport fixes, patches, enterprise harden, and make this code very stable for your enterprise-based environment on there. We do give it a 1-year life cycle, so once it is released, you have 1 year that we will support it for it. I do kind of expect this to grow as the project kind of continues on out there and slows down a little bit. We do certify all our hardware and application certified, so everything that's from RHEL carries over to Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack. And our consistent ecosystem of partners out there today continues to support it. So let's talk about what our typical Red Hat OpenStack platform deployment looks like. So when you look at it, it's pretty simple. There's some very basic services out there. A networking service, you have Glance and Sender. out there, glance for images, sender for your disk out there. Everything is installed fairly quickly and easily. You can do it just by running what is called the packstack command, which is basically the OpenStack install command. So pretty simple system. You can actually, heck, I've actually installed it on my laptop and had it completely up and running just as you see here. So very easy, pretty typical deployment. What most people ask us today, though, is how do you know if you're actually ready for OpenStack out there? Because it's different. It's not necessarily your traditional virtualization environment. What I mean by that, if you look at the traditional virtualization environment out there, you'll notice they're big, stateful, large VMs. You know, there's pretty much one application running on one single VM in it, scales up. So, you know, if you have problems with something, you know, running out of CPU resources, you'll add virtual CPUs to that VM. Pretty typical in a traditional environment out there. In a cloud, most of the VMs are stateless. They're kind of small. One application contains many VMs. If you look at, I used to work in a banking environment. If you look at what online banking was for us, we had many application servers in the back, many web servers in front, lots of databases in the back. If one of those databases or application servers or anything that went down, didn't really matter. The application was not stateful, could move on to the next application server, continue the processing that it was doing very quickly and easily. Most people, you know, if a VM dies, the application kills it, creates a new one, app stays up, kind of what I was describing there. And most people out today, and even me in my past life, we were basically managing a combination of what you saw out there. So you had a combination of traditional large monolithic VMs out there, and you had some applications that were more spread out, and they're able to do things stateless in their application servers moving forward with that. Kind of another analogy to kind of look at it is traditional workloads are kind of like pets. So how many of you have a pet? I have a bulldog, English bulldog. I love my dog. You know, it's my furry baby, as I like to call it. But, you know, they're given names, you know, rover.redhat.com. Very unique. You know, you lovingly care for that pet. I know I do for my bulldog. And, you know, it's nice and snuffly and snuggly as she is. But, and you'll nurse them back to health if they get sick. So you're not, you know, very, very, very caring, keeping things going, kind of like your traditional VM workloads out there. So that large VM basically gets sick, you're going to patch that, nurse it back to health, make sure it works. If there's a performance problem in it, you'll sit there and look at that application and find out what's doing the performance problem to it and tune the specific VM to handle that. In cloud workloads, it's more like farm. So there's pigs, cattle, whatever you want to grow on your farm, no big deal. You kind of name them Pig 242 or Pig 23, whatever, it doesn't really matter. They're almost identical to each other. Every one of them's muddy. They all sort, you know, get the general idea. Same thing when you get, and if, you know, one gets ill, well, you take him to the auction, sell him off, and go buy another one. No big deal, right? Same thing with your applications. If your applications are run like farm animals, you'll name them like App Server 3843. You know, whatever data center, whatever, you know, domain you're at. You'll sit there and the application understands that if that app server goes away, there's probably 20 or 30 other app servers there that can take over the load. So the application is spread out across many various app servers, very much like farm animals. So if your workloads are all cloud enabled and you're ready to build a cloud on Red Hat platform, let's talk about kind of what they look like. So you pretty much have them all for animal, and you're able to provide application availability independent of infrastructure. So your applications aren't really concerned about the number of disk drives, what configuration they're in, what operating system is there. All it cares is, can I run in this environment? Looking for like that. We have Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform integrated and optimized for you, ready to run. What if your workloads are mostly traditional? So if you look at mostly traditional workloads out there, and, you know, big monolithic VMs, typical VMware environment, let's just be honest about it, you probably have a lot of these in your environment, and maybe your developers are out there working now, and they're starting to develop these cloud applications in it. Well, what you'll notice, and what we see from talking to our customers, is there's a pretty large chasm that kind of exists in between it. And people are asking us over and over again, how do you fill that chasm? we fill it with what we call the open hybrid cloud. So we believe there's opportunity for multiple heterogeneous resource pools of systems. So different hypervisors, being able to use Amazon or Google Cloud, and being able to control and contain it from one particular interface out there. OpenStack does not provide you this today. We provide it with a product that we call Red Hat CloudForms. Red Hat CloudForms gives you billing and chargeback capabilities to it, and ability to analyze capacity planning in it, and manages our Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization. We're working on making it manage OpenStack. Also manages your VMware environment today. So if you're in an environment today where you have something, existing hypervisor today, you wouldn't have to throw it out, rip and replace, to be able to use Red Hat CloudForms and start getting yourself towards this open hybrid cloud over here and start being able to manage, do billing and chargeback, things like that inside of OpenStack. So what comes next? So right now, if you're interested in OpenStack, definitely go to RDO, take a look at it, openstack.redhat.com, download it, try it out, run the packstack command. There's lots of good documentation there. Feel free to give me a call. I'll help you out. Just like Fedora is to Red Hat Linux, though, don't expect to run your production applications on this and manage to get support from us. If you're looking for that level of support, go ahead and purchase the Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack. You'll be able to get support from us, our resources, our engineers, our consulting guys, to make sure things work and run exactly like you expect it to. So kind of what OpenStack is going to be doing, we're going to continue to focus on the core of OpenStack, management tools for OpenStack, and we'll kind of deliver a lot of the stages. So we'll start leveraging a lot of the services in Rev. You see, if you're interested in Rev now, you know that Keystone will be integrated, where you can use Keystone as an authentication for Rev. You're starting to see things like Cinder be integrated and Glance the image service. So you can look at the Rev open source project out there and see we're starting to get a lot of that. And what we're going to do is basically we're provide the OpenStack roadmap for Cloud Workload. Yep, we got an email. So what you'll see in the future is you'll have CloudForms controlling Red Hat, the Linux OpenStack platform. We actually can do this today to a limited degree. The other thing that we're going to do is make it where Rev can plug in directly to OpenStack. So you can take our Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, put it right into an OpenStack cloud system, private cloud in your environment, and start running it immediately. And we'll continue to use shared services based on OpenStack. You've heard me talking about using the image service and Keystone, and even using Neutron, the networking service, inside of our virtualization product. So we'll continue to roll that forward. That's one of the beauties of having the open architecture that OpenStack has. If you like something, you can pretty much take it and use it in your environment today. And being that all our stuff's open source, very easy for us to do. So who will be the Red Hat OpenStack? Of course, we will. Red Hat. So that's what I have for you today. Fairly short presentation. Any questions that came out of that? More understanding you need behind OpenStack? Anybody on the phone have questions? So I think the question was, what are some of the hardware vendors that support Red Hat OpenStack today? You can actually look, since all of our certifications are congruent across, so anything that supports Red Hat Enterprise Linux today can support Red Hat OpenStack, Enterprise OpenStack running on top of it. So all your traditional hardware vendors out there, IBM, Cisco, HP, all those guys, and various other vendors out there. But the big boys definitely do. So. All right.
What is the licensing model prices for the Red Hat supported OpenStack option?
Sales. Where's sales in here? Sales in here? Sales. So we do license it by socket pair, just like we do Rev. Socket pair. person that asked that question, can I get you a quote?
Let's see, another question we have here. How does OpenStack integrate with the hypervisors? Does it just take the root credentials and control them?
You have to assign a user for that. So what OpenStack does is it uses the native libraries that are already given for a hypervisor. So if you're using KVM that's using the native hypervisor, actually OpenStack VMware can run underneath as the hypervisor platform there. So what it does is it uses the native tools that are built into the virtualization. It's up to you to configure how the users work.
And one more, I think. How do you compete to other solutions like IBM Smart Cloud Orchestrator?
How do we compete with it? Well, we compete with it. How do we compete with against IBM Smart Cloud Orchestrator? We compete with it with our CLOUDFORMS running on top, running Rev as the hypervisor underneath it, and being able to connect to OpenStack underneath there. So we give you actually more features than what Smart Cloud gives you in some ways. A billing and chargeback, our reporting, the ease of use of our product is actually, we don't take weeks to set it up. CloudForms sets up in a couple hours. Those are the big things that we compete with. And if you want to talk further about that, I'd be happy to come out to your site.
Like we have a question asking who the speaker is. Our speaker is Daniel Fail. He's a Channel Solutions Architect at Red Hat.
All right. I think we're good. Well, thank you, guys.
Okay, we will take a short 10-minute break and return for the second part of the OpenStack training certification with our presenter, Randy Russell. We will be back in 10 minutes. Okay. This webinar is being recorded. We will provide you a link to this recording as soon as it is available. If you do have any questions, please feel free to use the questions panel. Just type in your question and click send. At the end of the webinar, we will do a question and answer session and take as many questions as possible. Now to introduce our second presenter is Randy Russell. Randy is the Director of Certification at Red Hat and oversees exam development and all aspects of Red Hat's technical certification programs. He joined Red Hat in 1999 when Red Hat had a single office, a single location, a single exam, and a single training course. Randy has overseen exam and certification program development for most of the time since then. From 2001 through 2007, he also led curriculum development. Thank you so much, Randy. Welcome, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. And good morning, everybody. We're happy to have you here and online to learn a little bit about Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform and the training and certification options that we have available for that particular product. So I like to assume that everybody knows a whole lot about Red Hat in general and about Red Hat training and certification in particular, but there is the reality that sometimes maybe they don't. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Red Hat training and certification, first of all, at a high level, and explain why we're different. Because Red Hat training is always hands-on. It's a very hands-on, interactive, lab-based approach. Okay? Red Hat certification is rather unique in the industry in that every certification exam that Red Hat offers is a hands-on, practical exam. By that I mean that you actually do real work. You do real-world tasks on real equipment. Okay? So if you're taking one of our system administration performance-based exams, you're going to perform system administration tasks, whether it's getting a Red Hat Enterprise Linux system up and running and configured in a certain way, or whether it's, for example, configuring a Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform environment. All hands-on, 100%. So those are two real key differentiators for us, is that our training, very lab-based, and that our testing approach, completely hands-on, again, also lab-based. Another thing that's important to know about the Red Hat training is that we actually try to provide some flexibility in terms of how you go about getting that training. So it is possible to do the traditional training approach where you come to a classroom and you have a highly knowledgeable Red Hat certified instructor teaching your course there in person while you work on equipment and do labs and, work with the technology. We have some other options, however, for people who might not be able to get out of the office, who need to do this in their spare time, or for whatever other reason cannot go to an instructor-led session. For example, we have virtual classroom training that is sort of like instructor-led in the sense that you do have an instructor, and it is for a certain period of time each day, but you don't have to be at a particular physical location. You're working remotely. You're dialed into a number, and then you're watching a presentation, and you have actually a remote lab environment that you're able to use for your lab activities. We also have the ability to do self-paced training, which we call Red Hat Online Learning. In this case, you go at your own pace for a period of time. You have access to remote labs. Again, this is just another alternative that gives you a little bit more flexibility. Sometimes companies like to actually have us come to their site to conduct instructor-led training. That's also an option for us. In addition, our certification program also has some flexibility. We can come on site, just as I was saying with training. We have open enrollment classroom sessions. And we also have something called individual exam sessions where you can basically book a time of your choosing, go to one of our locations that supports this with a testing station, and you basically test on your own time, at your convenience rather than enrolling into a scheduled classroom event. So we have several different paths to meet your need. Core system administration, which mostly covers Red Hat Enterprise Linux. We have some advanced system administration that drills deeper into Red Hat Enterprise Linux and also covers things like Red Hat Satellite, covers performance tuning, those kinds of topics. We have a growing cloud portfolio because Red Hat's product portfolio in support of cloud infrastructure is growing. So we have courses in support of CloudForms, Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, and of course, Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform. We also have a middleware portfolio product, and we have courses and exams in support of that JBoss middleware portfolio. So just a little bit now about what we're here to talk about today. And I want to step back a minute from the idea of OpenStack in particular and approach this from how do we think that IT organizations are going to be restructuring their infrastructure over the coming years. This is a process that's already happening, and there's some organizations that are further down this road than others, but we think that inevitably most organizations are going to go down this path, and that is that they're going to have an open hybrid cloud architecture in which they approach things from three different ways. One is infrastructure as a service, that fundamentally the idea of a lot of bare metal systems in a data center is going to be displaced by the idea of a highly virtualized environment that, going beyond simply virtualized, is more of a cloud environment in the sense that there's some self-provisioning, that there's the ability to delegate out, the ability to spin up new instances and so on, and then ultimately actually to move workloads between different virtualization environments you might be using. Okay, so maybe you have VMware in your shop, maybe you have Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, and maybe you want to do some overflow from those into a public cloud like Amazon EC2. That's sort of the vision. We think that's where people are going to go, is they're going to have their internal data centers move more to a cloud architecture, and that ultimately they're going to want to be able to move workloads between those different internal cloud architectures and possibly even external ones. Platform as a service is another key pillar here. The idea of platform as a service is that we are going to provide an application development framework that makes it easier to bring your applications to production. Okay, so OpenShift, for example, is a very key part of this. This is something that enables your developers to develop more quickly and to stage their applications more efficiently. And then the last piece is sort of the management of the cloud itself and the management of those workloads and the orchestration of your applications. That's another key piece that, again, is trying to drive some efficiencies and make it easier to maintain your infrastructure, maintain your applications, and to bring things to market faster. So this is sort of the overview of where we're seeing the cloud heading. So we see this as a journey. And the journey starts with the idea that you have this notion of an open data center, that you are a Red Hat Enterprise Linux shop, which I think many of you probably are. We hope that you're also perhaps using Red Hat Satellite to manage those Red Hat Enterprise Linux instances. And then perhaps you also are looking at Red Hat Storage as a way of doing software-defined storage that gives you some efficiencies over those rather expensive hardware vendors out there. But we see this as a step that you're going to take on your way to the future. And the next step is that perhaps what you're going to do is you're going to do your traditional workloads in something like Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization. But there are steps beyond that where you start to abstract out that virtualization a little bit more to where you now have more of a cloud environment. And perhaps you've actually got multiple virtualization platforms and you're needing to orchestrate among them. That's where CloudForms comes in. So we see this as sort of a journey that you're going to take over the next several years, a step at a time. And what I want to kind of point out is that we have training and certification that supports every step of that journey along the way. So now let's talk a little bit about just generally what we are offering in terms of cloud, and I'll get to OpenStack in a minute. So we do offer courses and exams in Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, which is sort of our more traditional virtualization package. We have courses and exams on Red Hat OpenStack. More on that in a minute. We have a course on Red Hat CloudForms, which allows you to orchestrate between different virtualization platforms. We have instruction and certification on Red Hat Storage, software-defined storage, as I mentioned before. We have courses on OpenShift Enterprise, okay, this platform as a service product that we offer. So a little more about OpenStack administration. So our courses, our exams that we are doing in this space is based entirely on Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform. Now, Dan had talked a little bit earlier about all the different flavors that are out there of OpenStack. It's not unlike Linux in that sense, or actually a great many other open source projects. So Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform is our commercial platform for OpenStack. It's just like RHEL is the equivalent. The comparison is RHEL and Fedora. Okay, so our emphasis is that we are a vendor, and this is what we use when we are teaching. We believe this is what our customers are going to want to use. We don't think that what people are going to want to do is cobble together out of source code for production purposes their own little version of OpenStack. So this is what we focus on. Now, the kinds of things that we cover are some of the things that would be kind of obvious to cover for something like OpenStack. Installation, getting it set up, creating instances, configuring and securing the messaging that underlies all of that, cloud architecture, configuring identity services, configuring Swift and Cinder block object storage, network configuration, orchestration using templates. This is an important subject because you don't want to have to do the same thing over and over and over again. What you want to do is figure out how to solve a problem once and then use that solution in the future to recreate something new and different. We also talk a little bit about implementing metering using Celimeter. Now, that's an important topic because one of the things that the cloud approach brings you is the ability to actually do some metering and chargebacks or customer charging for those instances and so on. So this is also an important part of what you need to know as the basics for Red Hat OpenStack administration. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit here and mention that we actually are going to be bringing a number of additional courses to market in the coming months. Okay? These have not been announced yet, but we're here with our friends at Global Knowledge, and I want those of you who are online or here in person to know that there are more things coming and that we intend to offer the most comprehensive OpenStack training portfolio out there. So what have we got coming? Well, first of all, we're going to have a course on neutron networking. So you heard me use the expression software-defined storage previously, talking about the Red Hat storage product. Well, neutron networking is the notion of software-defined networking, okay, where our network is not necessarily a tangle of cables and hubs and switches and things like that. It is instead all software-defined. Now, obviously, that's going to be very important in something like a cloud network because there aren't cables and switches. It is all software-defined. And so this is a deeper dive into some of those possibilities, some of the kinds of things that you can do in terms of the networking, the security of the networking, and so on. Another topic that we're going to cover in a specialized deep dive class is Swift object storage. Now, we who are familiar with Red Hat Enterprise Linux and have worked with operating systems and we have a way of thinking of block storage, we think of logical volumes, we think we've got everything sort of known and figured out. Well, guess what? The way that you have to actually think of your block storage when you're in this OpenStack environment is actually kind of different, okay? So Dan had mentioned again that there are a number of different components within OpenStack. Swift is the object block storage component, and this is a deeper dive into some of those things that, again, are sort of net new if you're coming from this from a Red Hat Enterprise Linux system administration background. Messaging is another important component within OpenStack. All those components have to be able to talk to each other, be aware of each other, right? There's a couple of different ways that actually messaging can be done within OpenStack. We are going to be offering a course that will focus on Apache Cupid for that purpose. And then another one that we're going to offer will be high availability. Okay, so how do you use Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform as a mechanism for creating a highly available infrastructure where you can have instances jumping up to take the place of other instances and just basically your sort of high availability, high reliability kind of service. And then last, troubleshooting, okay? Because we have all these different components, there are different things you can switch in, switch out. It is potentially complex. And anytime you have that kind of situation, troubleshooting is inevitably something you're going to be doing on the route to actually getting your solution up and running and in place. So we're going to provide a course that helps you understand the tools that are available, the logging, how to figure out why your OpenStack implementation is not doing what you think it should be doing. And so that's it for now. If we have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So who do you see as an audience for those last several training courses that you've announced? Is that for people who've been working with OpenStack for a number of years, or is it for newcomers who want to learn OpenStack and get certified as quickly as possible?
That's a great question, because I don't see those as the first course that you take in general. Now, there's a couple of them that you could just go ahead and take them. That would not be the path I'd suggest. I'd say that those courses do have in mind some of those folks who are out there already and have been doing some work with OpenStack and want to drill deeper into it, and who also want to have a better sense of the Red Hat implementation of OpenStack. What I would say is, if you're not working a lot with OpenStack, I would start with the Red Hat OpenStack administration course, which will give you the foundation, and then once you've had some exposure to that and experience with it, then you can actually maybe drill deeper into the subjects with those additional courses that you think are necessary for your particular needs.
And would those courses also be useful and flexible for people who've been working with the open source and fee-based OpenStack?
I think they would. I think they would, because a lot of these components are going to be familiar. You're going to have encountered Swift at some point. You'll have perhaps worked some with Neutron. I think what it'll allow you to do is to drill deeper into them, and again, find out some of the things that we've done at Red Hat with our particular distribution of it. So yes, I think somebody who's been working with, with the community versions would probably be comfortable in some of those courses if they have that prior background.
Okay,
Other
we
questions?
do have a virtual question. Let's see. How is Rail OpenStack positioned relative to Citrix Cloud Platform?
How is, I don't know how I would answer that, Dan. Do you have a sense of how is Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform positioned relative to the Citrix, what is the name of their offering? Cloud Platform. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure how I would answer that.
Okay, what are the new, recent, and planned accompanying certifications for the courses presented?
Okay, so we already have a certification called Red Hat Certified System Administrator in Red Hat OpenStack. That's available today. We have these additional courses coming out, and I will go ahead and say that there are going to be exams that are aligned to those courses. What we have not decided on yet and have not announced, in fact, the courses are not announced. I'm kind of letting you in on a little inside stuff. We haven't decided how we're going to consolidate some of those topics, because there might be some benefit in actually combining some of them for the purpose of exams, but we might also keep them all as separate exams. So let's just say that I expect that we will have anywhere from 1 to 5 different exams that will be available aligned to that content. The final decision on that has not been made yet.
Thank you. Will the OpenStack certification exam ever be delivered virtually?
Well, it depends on what you mean by virtually. So if you mean, will we be able to can I take this exam at home in my bathrobe? The answer will be no. Okay, so we are believers that exams do need to be proctored. And so one of the things that we offer is the ability to take that individual exam session where you don't have to go to a scheduled classroom exam. You can go to a location that has one of our testing stations. We have a remote proctor. You're working on our hardware, It's not quite the same as taking it on your laptop, you know, as I say, on the couch in your bathrobe, but it is the next best thing. And again, the reason we do that is because we believe it's more secure to actually have secured hardware and to go to a location that is not the exam candidates.
Okay, separate from the power training, will there be free OpenStack sessions at Red Hat Summit?
Well, let's see. So there's the power training, which you have to sign up for. I don't think there's any other sessions at Summit that would be free, but there are obviously going to be a lot of Summit sessions on the subject of OpenStack that are not necessarily part of power training. Any others?
So other than the official classes and exams, will there be any other resources for training and exam prep? And for instance, Red Hat offers maybe online videos or training guides?
Well, so you know, the training itself is something that you sign up for, and you can get it through Global Knowledge. One of the things that I would say that is useful to anybody, and you can really think of this as something that will help you make some training decisions, but also sort of establish where you are in things, is anytime we have an exam on any subject, we always have an exam objectives document. And that exam objectives document is actually a pretty thorough list of the kinds of things that somebody might need to know. So what I would say is that if somebody's coming to, you know, OpenStack, for example, take a look at our OpenStack exam objectives document. That'll give you a sense of what we're thinking that people need to know and where you need to be. It might be that you've used OpenStack so much that you're just ready to jump in the exam and get certified. Or it might be that you look at that and you say, oh, there are some particular areas that I need. And then down the road, we're going to have some resources like skills assessment and so on once we launch these additional courses that I think will help people guide them towards the training. But in terms of sort of a free video, things like that, there's nothing like that planned, although Red Hat as a whole does typically come out with some kinds of videos and sort of, you know, webinars and things like that in support of its products. It's just not sort of considered a formal training offering.
We have one coming up on April 29th. That's a taste of training on OpenStack that we could follow up with you and share.
So just to repeat, there is a taste of training that we're going to make available April 29th. That will give a flavor of this, but again, it's just a segment out of the course, but at least it gives you a sense. It will cover a useful topic, and it will give you a sense of what's covered in the course. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, for attending and for your questions, and have a good day.
Thank you, Daniel and Randy. We will try and get the response to the questions that we did not reach later on this week. We would like to thank everyone for attending this webinar. Just a reminder, we will be sending you a link to the recording as soon as it is available. Thanks so much, and the webinar has concluded.
Okay, great.